All right. So college football final tonight, which reason number 99 why I cannot stand preseason polls, a.k.a. reason infinity. Got Florida State sitting at 0-2 right now. You got LSU sitting at 1-1. They lost to USC. You got Clemson at 1-1. They lost to Georgia. You got A&M without a win. They lost to Notre Dame. Speaking of Notre Dame, they lost to Northern Illinois. Georgia Tech is now 2-1. They lost to Q's. KU, they're 1-1 after their loss to Illinois. The game with Alabama and USF, that was a lot closer than the final score suggested. Picking up what I'm putting down finally here. Why I cannot stand preseason top 25 polls. We do not need rankings until after week 8. Bare minimum last weekend of October. Because they don't make sense beforehand. Because reasons. These reasons. Georgia Tech, they were ranked predominantly because of their win over Florida State. Yet here we are, 2 games later, they lost to Syracuse. So what's going to happen now? Syracuse is going to be in the top 25 after they're 2-0 because of their win over Georgia Tech? And as a diehard Syracuse fan, I'm telling you that. Don't get me wrong. Kyle McCord looked phenomenal. 380-plus yards, 4 TDs, no picks. Simultaneously, they need some sort of a run game. Clear issues with the special teams. Had a field goal block, onside kick recovery, punt block. I mean, they had a lot of issues that they still need to clean up. KU losing to Illinois. Oklahoma had a very hard time with Houston. And if I'm a Houston fan, I'm pissed. Because that was clearly a face mask. Everybody's saying, well, that was a safe. No, we should have been talking about a face mask. On OU, 15-yard penalty. That's a point-blank situation. It took him forever to review that final play, which he was down. He was down when he lost the football, but regardless how differently the game could have gone had the face mask been called correctly. A Nebraska fan will tell you all about that, right? Remember the game against Kansas State? Got his neck twisted shut. Year after year, we see this. Speaking of Georgia Tech, one of the things that I talked about was last season, Georgia Tech did not upset Miami. They revealed who Miami really was. They were inept as play callers, inept as a head coach, inept as a football team to hold on to the football. Should have been taking a knee, but still hang on to the damn football. 2 hands, cradle it. Instead, can't hang on to the football. You fumble it. Defensively, poor play calling there afterwards, the inability to execute. They revealed who Miami really was. I mean, you look at OU, they've had their hard time with Houston long before tonight, right? Houston, a couple of years ago, beat OU. What did Houston finish that year? Was it 9-3? OU was a pitiful year, especially given their standards. All Houston did was reveal who OU really was. I cannot stand preseason top 25 rankings. I hate the ranking system before week 8, and these are reasons why. And all these SEC fans, when I act like I'm hating on the SEC, it has little to do with the SEC. If you're a real SEC fan, you will remember, what was it, 2017, 2018, somewhere in that neighborhood? 7 teams were ranked to start the season. By week 5, 3 teams remain. The rest have been flushed out already. Wasn't that the year that Tennessee kept winning by a thread, and eventually it caught up to them? Started out the season 7-0, ended up winning 4 or losing 4 games in a row. I kept talking about how Butch Jones had lost the locker room and all that stuff going on with Peyton Manning and the allegations and all that. No. We don't know who's really good right now. We don't have a clue. And predicated upon what we've seen, LSU bounces back, but they beat Nicholls State. Stop it. Stop the cap. When all is said and done, the real teams reveal themselves. And I'm so sick of hearing the word upset, especially with the transfer portal and the way that it is now. This is not 1990 anymore, where you look at a team and you go, man, they got a hell of a lot of juniors and seniors now, and they've been there for 3 or 4 years. They're integrated into the system. They're integrated into the guys that are around them. Everybody kind of knows each other. Everything is good. The coaches are still there after a couple of years. They've scouted everybody phenomenally. They know what's going on. They know what to expect from other coaches. This is not that anymore. We saw it when the playing field was leveled from 100 scholarships to 75. Now we're going to see it again through the transfer portal. It may happen even quicker now because of the transfer portal. When they limited the scholarships, it was a couple of years. It took a minute, but eventually it came to fruition and it became consistent. And everybody wants to talk about Boise State. Well, they forget about Utah and that undefeated football team, which, by the way, was coached by Urban Meyer and quarterbacked by Alex Smith. They didn't get a shot. And don't forget Rutgers, right? Remember, the Big East commissioner was livid. He was like, look, this is our record in BCS bowl games. Why are we not getting a shot? The fact of the matter is, there is room for everybody in college football, whether they want to believe it or not. It is there, especially now with the transfer portal. It is happening even faster than when they limited the amount of scholarships. Period. Speaking of transfer portal, Dion, he overhauled the Buffs roster again this season. Just not going to happen. Sure, in the second half they played pretty good, especially on the defensive side of the football. Offensively, they finally got some things going in the fourth quarter, but as of right now, as a coach prime, what's the word I'm looking for here? As a coach prime backer, it ain't happening. Been saying it, said it last season, saying it again this season. I love Prime, loved his career in the NFL, one of my favorite football players of all time. Don't give a damn about him being flashy and this and that and the third and all these other things. I could care less about any of that stuff. The reality is, so far at the University of Colorado, it's been a lot of talk, a lot of pizzazz, a lot of flash, some dirty football from other teams, but they're just trying to quiet the noise. They're playing determined football. Last season, they were faking punts left and right. They were doing whatever they needed to do to keep Shedeur Sanders from being on the football field. Right now, you look at Colorado, and you have to think to yourself, they are not relevant. What's going to happen is Prime's legacy will be predicated upon the fact that 3 players will end up in the NFL, and 2 of them are going to be his sons, and people are going to look back on this and go, he just basically did whatever he needed to do in order to get Shiloh and Shedeur to the NFL, and I am quoting the homie P at that moment. None of us wanted to believe it, but it's a reality. Somehow, some way, and I think it was through the understanding of money and NIL deals and all that stuff, Prime was able to lure Travis Hunter away from Alabama. But here we sit with Colorado at 1-1 in any meaningful game whatsoever, they get dusted. We're not talking about close games for the most part. We are talking about blowouts. Up until they beat North Dakota State at the beginning of this season, they hadn't won a game since October of last year. Prime's not going to be there next season. Everybody saw that interview, right? Joe Klatt asked him very simply at the end of this year, when everybody goes to the NFL, what are you going to do? Well, I'm a leader of men. I do not follow men. Okay, Broham, the question is, are you going to remain a head coach or not? Specifically at Colorado. The answer is very simple. And there were three choices. Yes, no, I don't know. That's it. Ain't gonna be all this extra. Say what you want, man. Say what's really on your mind. Come on now. They look horrendous anytime they play anybody worth anything. Seriously. And I maintained last season, if Colorado State hadn't beat themselves by headhunting and with stupid-ass penalties, they would have beat Colorado outright. But Norvell he couldn't help himself, could he? It is what it is. Look, the bottom line here is this. Colorado, it's not that they're irrelevant to college football in terms of their prowess. It's that they're irrelevant to college football in terms of what games are capable of winning. I said that if Dion was going to have a shot at going to the CFP, this was the year. With the switch and the transition of basically the Pac-12 being non-existent this season at least, the Big 12, I've always felt as overrated as it is. Now it's really to a point where, come on, your big dog KU just lost the game. Houston hung in tough, but come on, is a close loss really a win? Who's the team in the Big 12 right now? We don't know what's going to happen with Utah. Cam Rising just got hurt. This was the year, but it's not looking like they're even an 8 or 9 win football team at this point. And in terms of everything else that I aforementioned with the top 25 polls, where do you stand right now? Let's really keep it a buck here. There is still little room for error because at the end of the day, you have to win your conference. And so for anybody who says the regular season doesn't matter, sure, losing one game, maybe even two, doesn't necessarily hurt you, but you can't lose out in conference play because you lose your guaranteed shot in the CFP if you're a Power 4 conference. Colorado doesn't look like they're going to be able to take the Big 12. The SEC outside of Georgia is certainly up for grabs. The Big 10, Michigan just got mollywopped by Texas. They're another victim of top 25 polls. In the ACC, maybe Miami. We don't know what they're going to look like going forward. They took care of business against Florida. They handled business again last night, but against who? At least you could say they did what they needed to do versus everybody else that was struggling or losing. College football is changing big time, and there is no definitive answer to anything other than one thing, and that is we do not need top 25 polls before week 8, period. I'm Drew Duncan, and this is Underground Sports.